What is up, fellas? We are back for another UFC predictions video, this time for UFC 308, Topuria versus Holloway. Guys, we have a absolutely awesome card this weekend. Probably, I don't know if it's best card of the year, but it's top three for sure. Um, Tons of exciting matchups on this card, so let's just jump right into it. Kicking us off in the welterweight division, Renat Fakretnov versus Carlos Leal. Guys, this is a sick fight to open up the card, honestly. Renat Fakretnov, dominant wrestler, pretty much undefeated in the UFC. Carlos Leal is a guy stepping up to take this fight. I forget who Renat Fakretnov was originally meant to fight off the top of my head, but I believe Carlos Leal is taking this fight on short notice. Carlos Leal, though, dangerous guy, dangerous striking. 10 knockouts, I believe, 10-0 in the knockout. He's very big as well. Gonna have a little bit of a reach advantage on Renat Fakretnov, but I just think if there's a guy you're going to draw into at welterweight on short notice, I feel like Fakretnov is probably one of the worst guys you could get on short notice. Uh, just basically because that grappling is pretty dominant. You know, it hasn't looked as dominant lately, but he's fighting good anti-grapplers. Like if we pull up Renat Fakretnov's bio here, like Nicholas Dalby, really good anti-takedowns, really good cardio. Nicholas Dalby seems to give everybody problems nowadays, and Zaleski dos Santos as well. He's really good at stopping the takedowns and threatening strikes on the feet. But then, you know, before this, Kevin Lee, he absolutely brutalized Kevin Lee. He destroyed Brian Battle and he destroyed Andre Michailidis. I just think this is a hard fight for Carlos Leal to get in his first UFC fight. Carlos Leal, though, like I said, very dangerous, dangerous in the stand up. And I think as long as they are standing, there's going to be a chance for Carlos Leal to land a big shot on Fakretnov. Fakretnov does have good power in his hands, but his striking does leave him open pretty often, and he is there to be hurt. Like he can be hurt on the feet, and Carlos Leal can do that. But my thing is, if these guys hurt each other, if Carlos Leal hurts Fakretnov, what's Fakretnov going to do? He's going to go to his baser instincts. He's going to be like, okay, I'm going to take this guy down. If Carlos Leal gets hurt on the feet, he's fucked. Like, he's pretty much fucked. So yeah, I'm just gonna lean Renat Fakretnov. He's had a full camp. I think Leal was getting ready for a fight. That's why he took this. But the guy I think he was probably getting ready for, not gonna be Renat Fakretnov. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna lean Fakretnov here. Full camp, kind of home field advantage. I'm gonna go with Fakretnov here. I think he's probably gonna win a decision here over Carlos Leal. Leal's a tough guy. I think he can make it all three rounds, but I think Fakretnov's just going to dominate him in the grappling. I think as long as they're standing, it can be close and it can be competitive. I might even give a little bit of the edge to Leal, but it's just the wrestling is just so much more dominant on the side of Renat Fakretnov. Moving up to middleweight, Ishmael Nardiev versus Bruno Silva. This is a tricky fight for me because I'm not, man, Ishmael, his line has moved quite a bit since the last time I've seen it. Um Ishmael Nardiev, decent fighter. All around, not too shabby, mixes it up when he needs to. Um he does have some prior UFC experience. It didn't quite go his way, but he's really young. I mean, he's still really young. He's only 28 years old. Bruno Silva, recently in his career, has kind of taken a downward spiral. Um, you know, a lot of people talk about the Chris Weidman fight, and as somebody who picked Bruno Silva in the Chris Weidman fight, I was annoyed at the way it ended because he did get finished by an eye poke combination. But I'm just gonna put it out there: if that fight, if Bruno Silva doesn't get eye poked there, um, and they just go the rest of the third round, he would have lost that fight by a decision. Like he did not look good against Chris Weidman at all. He looked very bad on the feet. He was getting absolutely torched on the feet by Chris Weidman. Shara Magomedov did decent in this fight, but still lost. Brendan Allen dropped him and strangled him very easily. The Brad Tavares win, that's a good win. It's good to get a knockout on Brad Tavares in the first round. Not a lot of people can do that. And then he got Club and subbed by Gerald Mearshart, lost to Pereira by decision, and then, Andrew Sanchez is a bomb, Jordan Wright's a bomb, Wellington Turman has no chin. I think Bruno Silva, once he faces like upper mid level of unranked UFC fighters, he's just kind of not the same. No, I know he did have a good fight with Pereira, but he did get his ass beat, and it doesn't seem like he's ever been the same since then. Ismail Nardiev does have some ugly losses on his record, but I think he's the younger guy here. They're very similar sized. Now, Ishmael was a guy who is largely fighting at welterweight. I think in his last fight, he was at 175, something like that. I don't know if it was his last fight, but he was fighting like some super welterweight or something at like 175. Nardiev is decent. He's got good counterpunching, and I think he's a little bit more composed on the feet, more composed than a guy like Bruno Silva. Now, both of these guys, sometimes when they think they have an opponent hurt, they kind of just throw caution to the wind and blitz in there. And both guys have paid for it. Nardiev has as well recently. Hurt a guy on the feet, rushed in, got caught by a giant looping shot, dropped him. This is an ugly fight, but I'm going to lean Nardiev. I think he has the ability to mix it up better than Bruno Silva. I think his counterpunching is a little bit better than Bruno Silva. And whereas Nardiev kind of gets wild when he has somebody hurt, Bruno Silva is just kind of wild from the get-go a lot of the times. Now, I honestly could see a Bruno Silva upset, and I want to say this. There are so many good underdogs on this card that you can pick and get value out of. So I'm going to give like a good shout to every underdog I think is good value, honestly. I think Bruno Silva can win this fight. I mean, he has the motivation to, because if he loses this fight, he's cut. Like, there's no way he's not cut if he loses this fight. Like, so his career is on the line here. But, I think Nardiev is also pretty well motivated to get in there and win this fight as well. Both similar size. I'm just going to lean with the younger guy in Nardiev. I think he mixes it up a little bit better. I think he's a little bit more accurate on the feet. I think this is going to be a close fight over 3 rounds. I'm going to lean Nardiev maybe by decision or like a late TKO, maybe catches Bruno Silva coming in once Bruno Silva gasses a little bit. Yeah, I think so. Moving up, get straight to bantamweight, Farid Basharat versus Victor Hugo. This is actually, I'm really interested to see how this fight plays out. I know you see the line here. This line is insane. I'm going to be honest. This line is fucking ridiculous. Victor Hugo is actually good. Like, I know his last performance, mid. Not the greatest. But this guy is dangerous. He's got dangerous striking, and he's got very dangerous submission skills. Like, I don't think Farid Basharat is I don't think he's gonna look minus 650 in this fight, if I'm being honest. At all. However, I do think he is going to win this fight, but I think this line should be way tighter, if I'm being real. So maybe shot in the dark on Hugo. I mean, plus 500. Not a bad look. But yeah, I'm going with Farid Basharat. I think he is the better of the Basharat brothers. I think he's fought better competition. I think he's got better wins. He has a win over Taylor Lapulus. Not an easy guy to get a fucking win on, as you can see clearly, because he's been torching a lot of dudes in the UFC himself. I think Farid Basharat's going to be able to get the takedowns as he needs. I think he's going to be competent enough on the feet to contend with Victor Hugo. And I think he's smart enough to not get submitted by Victor Hugo. Although Victor Hugo does have nasty submissions and he's very skilled, I think Basharat is wise enough to not put himself into a position to get submitted by Victor Hugo. I think we're just going to see a pretty clean performance from Farid Basharat here over 3 rounds, where Victor Hugo might throw some big shots, might go for some submissions. I think Basharat's just going to be a little bit too technical and too smart and keep himself safe in positions like that. Shoot a takedown when he needs to, not put himself in too much danger, and just fight a pretty technical and intelligent performance here and get himself a decision over Victor Hugo. That's kind of what I'm feeling here. Moving up to heavyweight, Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Chris Barnett. Speaking of guys I don't think should be minus 650 against anybody, Kennedy Nzechukwu, guys. Um, this fight's gonna be disgusting. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna go with Kennedy Nzechukwu, despite him losing to fucking OSP in his last fight. Ovin St. Preux, he lost 2 guys. I'm not kidding. Um, maybe he'll feel better at heavyweight, no weight cut. He's the much bigger guy than Chris Barnett. Chris Barnett could be a fucking welterweight if he would just put the fork down. Um, I love Chris Barnett, but they keep matching him up with these big ass dudes. And at 38 years old, Chris Barnett's had a couple of injuries lately. His last fight he had to pull out of, not for any injury, but because of the hurricanes that hit his house or whatever. But he has had a couple of injuries lately. He's 38. He's vastly outsized here. I mean, 8 inches of reach disadvantage. How many inches of height is that? Like fucking, that's another 8 inches of height. Like he's just gonna be the smaller guy, and I think he's gonna really struggle to find Kennedy Nzechukwu's chin. Maybe Chris Barnett throws up a fucking wheel kick out of nowhere. That would be awesome. But I really just don't see it. I think Kennedy's gonna be the bigger, stronger guy. I think he's gonna push Chris Barnett up, maybe clinch him, throw big knees in the clinch. Because with a shorter guy like this, Kennedy Nzechukwu's knees in the clinch, they're gonna easily get right up to his chin. I think Kennedy Nzechukwu was also just a. I don't even want to say he's a better striker. Like I really don't. I think Kennedy will win this fight. I think he will land big shots in the clinch against Chris Barnett. I think Chris Barnett's largely going to struggle to find the chin of Kennedy Nzechukwu. Uh, I'd like to see a Chris Barnett win, but I just don't think so, guys. I'm gonna go with Kennedy Nzechukwu. I think he can finish Chris Barnett with knees in the clinch. Honestly, I think that's his best weapon for sure. He does have a submission threat as well, Kennedy. Um, but I think he could just blast knees up into the body and into the chin of Chris Barnett because he does have just such a disgusting advantage in height. Moving up to middleweights, Abus Magomedov versus Bruno Fahea. This is a tricky fight because both of these guys are very dangerous and very prone to gassing out, both of these guys. So it's kind of a pick your poison here. Line is kind of where I'm at in my own head thinking about this fight. I think I'm going to go with Abus Magomedov here over Bruno Fahea. Um, and I just think Abus Magomedov is just skill for skill a better fighter than Bruno Fahea. I think he's got the cleaner kickboxing. I think he does have the grappling edge here. Um, he is powerful as well. He has a very large height advantage. He has a disgusting reach advantage over Bruno Fahea. And Abus Magomedov is a pretty technical kickboxer, so I think he will be able to use that 6-inch reach advantage to his favor here. Bruno Fahea, on the other hand, very explosive, wildly powerful guy. And he is a dog. Despite getting tired, he will push hard as he can for 3 rounds. Where Abus Magomedov, you've seen him kind of wilt a little bit. But Abus's 2 losses in the UFC have come to, in my opinion, very high level of competition that would probably easily beat Bruno Fahea. He lost to Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland won a fucking belt, you know what I mean, and had a close fight with the current champion, right? So that's not such a bad loss. And Caio Borralho took him all 3 rounds, had a pretty competitive fight where Caio clearly won, but it was competitive, you know. Um, Caio Borralho, I mean, he's after that performance against Cannonier, he's probably championship level, you know what I mean? Like, I think if he fights Adesanya right now, he might beat him, you know what I mean? And then get himself a title shot. Like, Caio Borralho's right there. So I don't mind those 2 losses so much. Now, the wins for Abus Magomedov in the UFC, Dustin Stoltzfus and I believe Warley Alves are his 2 wins in the UFC. Yeah, that's correct. Now, these aren't the highest level of competition, but Bruno Fahea did just fight Dustin Stoltzfus and took him much longer to finish Dustin Stoltzfus than it took Abus. Abus does have good regional opponent wins as well. I like the Warley Alves fight despite it being very ugly and going all 3 rounds because it really pushed Abus Magomedov. I think he needs more fights that go the distance to kind of get him more accustomed to not just blowing a guy up right away and kind of help him work through that problem he has with kind of tiring out. I think Abus Magomedov here is going to win this fight. I think he's just a little bit better of a striker. I think he's got the physical attributes to keep himself safe at distance. And he's got power as well. He's got the takedown threat. I think he's going to struggle to get takedowns on Bruno Ferreira, but as the fight gets deeper and these guys gas out a little bit, I think he might have an easier time getting a takedown on Bruno Ferreira. So yeah, I'm going to go with Abbas Magomedov here. Do I think he finishes Bruno Ferreira? Maybe. Bruno Ferreira did get knocked out by Nursultan Ruziboev, which I think is a pretty bad loss, honestly. I don't think Ruziboev is very good. Um, Maybe Abbas Magomedov late TKO. I know that's kind of bold because Abbas gasses a little bit, but I just have a feeling. I like this matchup for him, but we will see. Ferreira is a absolute demon. So moving up to lightweight, Matus Rebecki versus Miktabik Orobai, my Cro-Magnon brother. I'm going with Miktabek Orobai here in this fight over Matus Rebecki. Giant size advantage. He can push a hard 3 rounds. Orobai can. I think his grappling is better. I think he has good power in his hands, and his striking's pretty clean. Matus Rebecki, on the other hand, his performance against Diego Ferreira, I don't want to say I knew that was going to happen. I picked Rebecki, but guys, when I tell you that whole week I was texting my friends and shit, I was like, dude, Diego Ferreira is going to beat this fucking guy. I can't remember. One of my friends I said that to. I said, dude, should I fucking lay an absolute hog on Diego Ferreira? And he says, don't be stupid, bro. I'll never forgive you for that. But back on track. Matus Rebecki, big, powerful guy, very dangerous early, very aggressive, good grappling, good ground and pound. His striking is pretty shit. He just has huge power, and he can corral people up against the cage and land big shots. I just think Orobai here, I think he can be safe early. I think he's a better grappler than Rebecki. I think if he gets taken down, he can get up. And if this fight goes out of like the first 5 minutes, who do you trust to fight hard for the next 10? It's going to be Orobai. He's just a fucking dog in there. I think the 8-inch reach advantage is going to be fucking huge for him as well because he does have nice striking as well. I think he honestly, he might have better wins as well in the UFC. I really like his performance against Uros Medic on short notice. That's a really good win. Went out there, put on a great performance against Elvis Brenner. Guys got into an absolute dogfight. And also, Orobai really hasn't taken that much damage in his career, and Matus Rebecki is coming off of an absolute car crash. I think Orobai's the side here. I think he's going to be the better grappler. I think if the fight goes longer, which I think it will most likely, I think he'll probably be able to do more in rounds 2 and 3 at least and get himself a decision win here over Matus Rebecki. Although I think this line should be tighter as well. There's a lot of really wide lines on this card that I just think are insane. Like Rebecki's super dangerous, and he's got good grappling as well. He's live for a KO at any point in this fight. You know what I mean? Moving up to welterweight, Jeff Neal versus Rafael Dos Anjos. Guys, I'm going with Jeff Neal. I love RDA. I've been an RDA enjoyer forever. I just think at this point in his career, this is a pretty tough matchup to feed the man. I know Jeff Neal is wildly inconsistent with his performances. Sometimes he shows up and looks like an absolute demon and gives Vicente Luque brain damage. And other times, he'll lose to Neil fucking Magny. That's the only thing in this fight, really. If Jeff Neal shows up and he's just kind of like, I don't know, he just looks like a bum, which sometimes happens, that's the only way he loses his fight. If he shows up, if the guy who showed up to fight Luque, showed up to scrap with Shavkat, even though he was a little bit compromised in that fight, if that guy shows up, he's beating RDA. At least this version of 39-year-old RDA. Like, Jeff Neal normally loses to guys who are much bigger than him, typically. Like a Neil Magny, like a Ian Gary, like a Shavkat Rakhmonov. When Jeff Neal's the much bigger guy, and he is going to be in here, he's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. He's going to be the taller, stronger guy. Man, that's dangerous for RDA. Maybe RDA can get takedowns. I don't think so, though. Jeff Neal's grappling defense is really good. And on the feet, Jeff Neal's power is going to get the respect of RDA very quickly, I think. And I don't rate RDA's power at welterweight all that much. And Jeff Neal's got a fucking chin. That's my problem. I think Jeff Neal's going to be too big. He's going to be too strong. He's going to be too powerful at welterweight for old man RDA. I think once RDA feels a shot, like a clean shot from Jeff Neal, I think RDA is going to be very tentative. Tentative. That's the word I'm thinking of, right? To get into the boxing range in exchange with Jeff Neal. I think Jeff Neal will just be able to keep RDA on the end of his punches and kicks. And I think he'll probably just win. I think he'll win a 3-round decision. I know a lot of people might think that Jeff Neal just knock out RDA. I think this might go all 3 rounds. I think RDA is going to get in there. He's going to shoot a couple takedowns, not get him. And then I think he's going to feel something on the feet from Jeff Neal, and he's going to be like, fuck. And he's going to start to maybe not be so aggressive on the feet and kind of just hang back and try and play the kickboxing game at range, but he's going to be at a huge disadvantage while doing it. I think Jeff Neal is just going to keep himself safe, not feed the hips to RDA or anything stupid, and just beat him up over 3 rounds. That's kind of how I feel like this fight's going to go. Ooh, this fight is stinky. Moving up to light heavyweight, Ibo Aslan versus Rafael Cerqueira. This fight, man, I really don't fucking know. Rafael was originally the underdog in this fight, and now he is the favorite, and I kind of understand why. For me personally, this fight is very hard to break down because both of these guys, Rafael's a little bit more unknown what his level really is at, just because his level of competition is quite low. Ibo Alsan, his level of competition is also quite low. And both of these guys are very dangerous knockout artists. Both of these guys are big, powerful dudes. But my thing with this is when you're breaking down these two guys and who, like, both of them have power. Both of them can knock each other out. I think Ibo Alsan is just a lot more hittable than a guy like Rafael Cerqueira, basically. He was getting teed off on by Anton Turcauge. I don't like that at all. Like, if Anton Turcauge is landing clean combinations on you, if Rafael lands these on you, you're dead. Like, you're fucking dead. That's my problem. But the thing is, Ibo Alsan can just throw a giant, disgusting looping overhand and kill Rafael. This line is a perfect symbol of what this fight is. I don't fucking know, dude. I think I'm going to go with Rafael Cerqueira in this matchup. He's the older guy, but I think he's going to be the bigger guy in there. I think he has a more diverse set of finishes. I think he can get it done with the hands or the feet. Maybe even throw an elbow or a knee in there and catch Ibo Alsan. I think he's the more accurate striker as well. And I think he moves his head and is more defensively responsible in the striking exchanges than a guy like Ibo Alsan. Like, I think Alsan's just there to be hit. We will see, though. This is a tricky fight to call. But I'm going to go with Rafael. I think he's going to get a TKO win over Ibo Alsan in like rounds 1 or 2. Also, Alsan does gas pretty hard because he throws everything into his punches. That was the last prelim, right? Yep. Opening up the main card, Sharabut Magomedov versus Armen Petrosyan. Oh boy. This is a tricky fight to call here because I'm unsure of the Petrosyan game plan. I'm sure a lot of people are actually picking Armen Petrosyan to win this fight because I can see it. I see the value. I see the vision. Petrosyan has fought much better competition, in my opinion, than Sharabut Magomedov. He's beaten better competition than Sharabut Magomedov. But my problem is I can easily see this fight being like two guys who just want to kickbox at range. Like, I see that happening. And I can see Sharabut Magomedov just keeping him on the end of his kicks. Because Petrosyan has the reach of a 6th grader for how fucking big he is. Now, Petrosyan does have decent kicks himself. I don't think he's going to be able to catch Sharabut very easily with the hands. And I think Magomedov is just going to keep his distance with his kicks, land good low kicks, land good body kicks, and just stay elusive. He's really good at doing that. His last performance against Oleg Zaychuk, I think Oleg Zaychuk is a worse kickboxer than Armen Petrosyan, but I think the style of Oleg Zaychuk is much more conducive to beating Sharabut Magomedov than Armen Petrosyan's. Like, Oleg Zaychuk's a guy, he bull rushes you, he gets in your face, he will crowd the kicker, right? I'm not so sure Armen Petrosyan's going to do that. they might just stay at range. And at range, I'm going to favor a guy with better kicks. I think Magomedov has better kicks. He also has more range on the hands as well, more reach with the hands. I just, I don't think Petrosian is going to shoot a takedown. I think if he does shoot takedowns, I think he'll get them. And if he, no, if you're like, Luke, Armin Petrosian is going to go in there, and I guarantee you he's going to shoot takedowns. If he does, he will win, most likely. If he shoots, he'll probably get them, and he'll probably control Magomedov. I'm not so sure he's going to do that. So I can't pick him. I think he's great value as an underdog, but I'm going to lean Magomedov because I think this is just going to be a close fight that's going to go the distance. And guys, if it's a close fight that goes the distance, be real with me. They are not giving that shit to Petrosian. Be real. I'm going to go with Sharabutin Magomedov here. I think he's going to squeak out a decision here over Armin Petrosian in a really close fight. I can see Petrosian getting an upset win, though, but I just think, you know, 6 out of 10 times, I think it's a close kickboxing decision that Sharabutin just scores a little bit more points in, personally. Moving up to featherweight, Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. Another sick fight, guys. I am going to have to pick Lerone Murphy over Dan Ige, though. Dan Ige is really good. He's very dangerous, big power, good counter punches. The problem is, I just think Lerone Murphy is a difficult style for Dan Ige because he's so well rounded and he's very composed. He doesn't really get ahead of himself in the striking. He doesn't really bum rush in and try and land a big power shot. Like, I see Lerone Murphy in this matchup largely just sticking to his fundamentals, sticking out his jabs, sticking out his straights with a little bit more reach, with a little bit more speed in his hands. I think he can keep himself safe at range, grapple when he needs to. If Dan Ige gets too close, clinch up with him, turn him to the cage, keep him up against the cage, maybe shoot a takedown as needed. I just think it's going to be a very composed performance from Lerone Murphy because I think he's very well rounded here. And I think you need to be that to beat a guy like Dan Ige decisively. Like, I think you need to be a guy who's pretty safe on the feet, doesn't really overextend yourself, and is willing to mix it up. You know, Dan Ige's biggest issues uh, in his fighting career have been guys who can keep him on the end of their punches and grapple when they need to. You know, and I think Lerone Murphy does have the style to do that. Unless we see something wildly uncharacteristic from Lerone Murphy, he just rushes in on Dan Ige and gets chinned. I really see this fight just kind of being a technical performance from Lerone Murphy for 3 rounds. I think this line should be a little bit closer though, because Dan Ige did have a good performance against Diego Lopez. But then again, Diego Lopez fights nothing like Lerone Murphy. Like, Diego Lopez is the kind of guy that Dan Ige can kind of beat because he's straight in his face and he's rushing in with big shots. That's a guy Dan Ige can counter and hurt on the feet. I don't think Lerone Murphy's going to be there to be countered, really. I don't think he's going to leave himself exposed defensively. And I think when Dan Ige does try and close that gap and get into boxing range, I think Lerone can just clinch him up, turn him, press him up against the cage, throw some knees, back off, get space again, get the middle of the octagon. I think he can do that for 3 rounds. I think he'll probably win a 3 round decision over Dan Ige, maybe 29-28. I could see Ige wobbling him a little bit, getting around maybe. Moving up to light heavyweight, Magomed Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic. Guys, I don't know about this one. Guys, I don't know about this one. I I want to pick Rakic so bad. Guys, I want to pick him so bad. This is the fight I've been the most torn on this entire card is this one. Because, like, dude, Magomed Ankalaev is not a minus 400 favorite in this fight. He is not. He is not. I'm going to, guys, a fortune favors the bold. This might be a risky pick. I could see Ankalaev winning this fight, you know, in like a 3 round decision or catching Rakic on the feet, maybe. But I'm going to pick Alexander Rakic. He's going to be the bigger guy. I wager he's the stronger guy. I think the kicks of Alexander Rakic can hurt Magomed Ankalaev. Rakic has nasty fucking low kicks. He's got nasty high kicks as well. He's got good hands, good kickboxing. He's got the reach. I think it's going to be hard for Magomed Ankalaev to work his grappling over a guy like Alexander Rakic because I think he's going to be outstrengthed. I really do. I would be shocked if he manhandles Rakic in any type of grappling exchange. Honestly, I think Ankalaev has better hands than Rakic, but like honestly, when I think about that Rakic's last performance against Prohaska, man, he was beating the dog shit out of Yuri Prohaska. And apparently, this just came out. Apparently, Rakic was on antibiotics for that fight, which is surprising. Uh, that's news to me. And the thing is, he came into that fight off of a gigantic layoff after a brutal knee injury, and he looked that good on antibiotics, brother. You're giving me that guy at plus 280? Okay. I just I just feel like this is a hard matchup for Magomed Ankalaev. I think Ankalaev is really fucking good, especially with his boxing. He's got great counter punches. His left hand is incredibly dangerous. I just think this is a tough matchup. This is probably, I think Rakic low key is probably the toughest matchup for just about every guy in the top 5. Like every time I see Rakic matched up with a top 5 light heavyweight, I'm like, I don't know about that one. You know, he's just really good everywhere. And I think he can hurt Ankalaev just as easily as Ankalaev can hurt him. Yeah, I'm going to go with Alexander Rakic. I just have a feeling. I don't know. I could easily be wrong here, guys. I could easily be wrong here. But I don't think Ankalaev's going to look minus 400 in this fight. And I think Rakic has a decent chance of chopping the legs early in the fight, landing big, powerful leg kicks, landing big body kicks, throwing big shots with the hands. And I think he can find him just as easily as Ankalaev can find him. And I think he's going to be a hard guy to grapple. I think he's going to be really big and really strong in there. I'm going to go with Rakic. I think he's going to win a decision over Magomed Ankalaev based on like the first 2 rounds. But we'll see. I don't know. If Ankalaev wins, give the man a title shot. He deserves it. Seriously. Oh, brother. Moving up to the co-main event at middleweight, Robert Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev. Guys, this video is going off the rails. I just picked a plus 280, and I'm going to pick a plus 205 too. I'm going with Robert Whittaker. If you're picking Khamzat Chimaev in this fight, what happens if he doesn't get him out of there in the first 7 minutes? Your answer will be he loses, because he will. If this goes out of like the first round and a half, it's caked. If he does not go in there and finish Robert Whittaker in the first 7 minutes, I think the fight is caked for Khamzat Chimaev. Because if it was 3 rounds, I would pick Khamzat Chimaev almost without a second thought. Because Khamzat Chimaev is basically guaranteed to win the first round. He always does win the first round. The problem is this is 5 rounds. And if he goes out there and dominates Whittaker the first round and doesn't finish him, he has now exhausted. We've seen it before. He exhausts most of his endurance in the first round. If he exhausts his cardio in round 1 and he has 4 more rounds against Robert Whittaker, he's fucked. That's just kind of how I see it. It's like Chimaev finishes him early or Robert Whittaker wins. I think Whittaker's better on the feet, easily. I think Khamzat could knock out Whittaker. I think he could land a big shot, but I don't think Khamzat has the striking to really find a guy like Whittaker. I don't think he's technical enough. I think he's going to have a harder time getting Whittaker down than most would think. Whittaker does have good jiu-jitsu. I believe he's a black belt. He never really uses it, but he could use it to threaten a submission and sweep up to his feet. He's got really good stand-ups from when he gets taken down. His anti-grappling is pretty good, dude.
I think I can trust Robert to be safe for the first 5 or so minutes of this fight, or at least the first 2 rounds. And fuck, Whitaker could give up the first 2 rounds and then just sweep the next three. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. Oh my god, this is such a hard fight though, because I can see Hamzat winning and going out there and just bulldozing him and winning. Because he did have a really good first round against Usman, but his second and third round, that Hamzat against Whitaker is getting his ass beat. And my problem is, he pulled out of this fight with an illness. I'm not sure where this guy's immune system and like his lungs and cardiovascular endurance is. Because he keeps getting sick and pulling out, is my big issue with him. Like, he could be even more compromised cardiovascularly going into this fight than he was against Usman. You know? And that's a huge unknown for me. Whereas, like, he's like, I know what I'm getting with Whitaker. I'm getting a 5 round fighter, a championship 5 round fighter who's well rounded. That's what I'm getting. I don't know if Hamzat Chimaev is going to go out there and be the guy who just kills the guy in the first round, or he's going to be the guy who has a very close competitive decision where he starts out blazing hot and then just tapers off into nothing by the end of the fight. Like, I just don't think he's minus 250 in this fight. He could look minus 250. I'm so torn on this fight, guys. But it's 5 rounds. I'm going with Whitaker. If Hamzat is finish early or bust. If he cannot get him out of there early, he loses this fight guaranteed. If Hamzat Chimaev wins a 5 round decision over Robert Whitaker, give the man the belt. I'm going with Whitaker. I think he's winning a decision here. I think he's got the veteran experience against very high level fighters his entire career. He can, like, you could give Robert Whitaker the bubonic plague and saw off his fucking foot, and he can take a top 10 guy all 5 rounds and beat him. You know what I mean? I'm going with Whitaker by decision over Hamzat Chimaev. Or maybe late TKO. I could see it if Hamzat doesn't get him out of there. I am going to be destroyed, though, emotionally if Hamzat wins, because I am a giant Robert Whitaker fan, and I will say that I am very biased in this fight. And moving up to our featherweight main event, Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. I'm going with Ilia Topuria over Max Holloway, guys, in this fight. Yeah, I am. I think Max Holloway's great. I think he's a great fighter. I have a pretty good read on Max Holloway generally in his fights. I picked him to beat Gaethje. I picked him to beat, like Yair. Picked him to lose the Volk every single time, by the way. Um, I think this is a hard matchup for Holloway because, like, a lot of people were set in stone, like, oh my god, Max Holloway is going to get fucking killed by Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje does not hit as hard as Ilia Topuria. I'm just going to say it. When's the last time you saw Gaethje put someone out with his hands? You don't see it. But people were set in stone that he was going to kill Max Holloway with his, just like hit him once and knock him out. He's going to kill him. No. Ilia Topuria kills people, though. And my thing is, Ilia Topuria knocks everybody out the exact same way. It's like they can't fight it. They get knocked out the same way. He corrals them up against the cage and lands a giant right hand, and they fucking die every single time. They just explode every single time. And Max Holloway is a guy, because I think Holloway, I don't think he's good. He has to be the aggressor in this fight, but I don't think he's going to be once he gets caught. I think he's going to be aggressive early. I think he's going to get hit early. I think he's going to be like, fuck, this guy actually hits hard. And I think he's going to be a little bit more respectful of the power coming back his way. I think is what's going to happen. And then I think Ilia is going to start inching his way closer. And Holloway's going to start inching his way back. And they're slowly going to find themselves up against that cage. And Holloway has ways to get off the cage. He has that spinning back kick. He caught Gaethje with a bunch that could land on Topuria. My problem is, if he throws that and it doesn't land, there is a absolute shit rocket right hand coming right back his way, straight at his chin. And the thing is, Topuria doesn't really miss all that much. I also think in the grappling, I think not a lot of people talk about this as a fold in Ilia Topuria's game. His grappling's really good. He's got a good takedown, and he's got really good submission skills as well. And he is fucking strong. I also don't like the weight cut for Max Holloway going to 155. Now he's got to drain himself to come back down to 145. And my thing is, I think like Max Holloway's having close fights with like Arnold Allen, not like close fights, but like you know what I mean, competitive fights. I think, yeah, and I remember a lot of discourse around that Arnold Allen fight, like Arnold Allen was gonna crack Max Holloway's chin. I remember that time. It was a very weird time, in the MMA space. People were worried that Arnold Allen was gonna crack Holloway's chin. People were worried that Gaethje was gonna crack Holloway's chin. This is the guy they should be worried about cracking his chin because he's very accurate. His boxing fundamentals are very good, and he actually has one punch KO power. Like he really, really does. Like this is just I don't like this matchup for Max. Now I think as this fight gets deeper, I think Max can start to come on a little bit in like the fourth and fifth. Maybe. I say maybe because there's a real world where Ilya does actual visible damage to Holloway and he's not able to fight through that. Like kind of like the third Volk fight where Max's face was all cut up, he was bleeding, wiping blood off of his face. I could see that as a possibility here. I also think the low kick game of Ilya Topuria is a little bit underrated as well. Like he was going low kick for low kick with Volk in their fight for as long as it went. Um, that's not easy to do, honestly. Um, and I think those low kicks will be there for Holloway, or will be there on Holloway as well. Because the thing with Max Holloway, when he fights a shorter guy, he kind of widens out a little bit his stance. When it's a guy like Gaethje who's more his size, he doesn't really do that so much. But when it's a shorter guy, he tends to do that. And the thing is, he's a shorter guy with the same reach. I think I just think Topuria is going to land the more damaging shots on Holloway early, get his respect, corral him up against the cage, and land his big shots. Maybe hurt Holloway. I think if things get dicey, I think Ilya Topuria has the ability to get a takedown on Max Holloway, or at least the ability to hold Max Holloway up against the cage if Topuria gets rocked by something. I think he'll be the stronger guy there. And I think he's just a little bit of a better boxer. And I think Max Holloway kind of struggles with short guys with technical boxing. Just generally. I think it's a hard matchup for him. I think I'm going to go with Ilya Topuria. I think he's going to win a decision here. I think he's probably going to win like the first 3 rounds or maybe like 2, 3, 4. That's the kind of the vibe I'm getting. I think this is going to be a really close competitive fight. But I think I'm just going to slightly favor Ilya Topuria here. Yeah. But that's it for this one, fellas. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I hope you do good on this card. I picked some underdogs here, so we will see. Um, we're almost at 100 subs. We're at 96, so don't forget to subscribe. That'd be awesome. Thank you guys so much. And as always, I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.